His pass catching abilities are elite for his position. And Football Guy's very own Jeff Bell called him a cheat code at the position. So I like this landing spot for him a lot.
Today we are combining our Superflex rookie rankings, and we're going to break these players down into tiers. We're going to talk about why we've moved players up and down, and why, where we have a tier break in talent, because I think it's really important, right, to have these tiers when you're drafting, whether it's, drafting for like a startup, a full league, but especially rookie drafts. When it gets down to a really small field, it's important to have these tiers. We'll talk a little bit more about that and why it's so important. But before we get started, I want you guys to hit that like button. It is a huge deal for us, man. It helps us grow the channel. We continue to get to do our work for all of you. And also, if you're not subscribed, you should be. Okay, this month is going to be all about rookie draft and dynasty content. And it's like Aerosmith said, you don't want to miss a thing. I know you liked it, Joe.
I got it.
Yeah, you did.
Old man.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. All right, let's get started here with our tier one. And number one overall, I think is pretty easy, but there is some argument as to who it could be. Right now, we both have Bijan Robinson, running back for the Falcons, at number one. Joey, how'd you feel about Bijan going to the Falcons there at pick 8? I
mean, I don't know if I can name a better destination than the team that ran the ball the most times last season in the NFL. Like, it's sad for Tyler Algier. Yeah, I'm sad for that. But Bijan Robinson on the Falcons is kind of a dream. And what's nice about it too, after they drafted Bijan, they bolstered the offensive line with Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse. So that was good to see. And Bijan's a stud. Is absolutely going to thrive in this offense. Averaged 6.1 yards a carry last year at Texas, and just short of 1,900 total yards with 20 touchdowns. He's the consensus number one overall. Last year we didn't have a rookie running back with over 300 total touches. But I think that's going to change this year. I think we can actually probably guarantee that's going to happen with Bijan. I know we're talking a lot of dynasty here today, but as far as redraft goes, I've got him as high as my RB4, just behind CMC, Eckler, and Saquon Barkley.
Where do you have him in dynasty?
He's probably my running back 1.
Yeah. That's where I have him too. Yeah, that's where I have him too. He's my dynasty running back 1, and he's in like that top 3, top 4 running back for redraft. And like you mentioned, he's probably going to be getting, and I tweeted this the other day when he got drafted, is that 350 touches is very much in the realm of possibility for Bijan Robinson here. Think about early Zeke Elliott when he was drafted by the Cowboys early in the NFL draft. He was RB2, RB3, RB5, RB5. That's the type of production we're thinking about here with Bijan Robinson. And I think potentially even better as a better prospect than Zeke was. So yeah, things are looking really, really good for Bijan Robinson over the Atlanta Falcons. Let's move on to our number 2 player here. Remember, this is Superflex. Okay. So you're going to see these quarterbacks off the board a bit earlier in your Superflex drafts. Joey, we both have Anthony Richardson as our number 2 player.
Yeah, he was my QB2 before the draft. But landing spot shoots him up to number 1. I love the receiver group around him, which is one of the reasons I have him as my number 1 dynasty quarterback. He's got Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and then we'll talk about rookie Josh Downs a little bit later. Most athletic quarterback in this or possibly any other draft class.
Oh no, any yards. Any. Don't even mince words. Yeah. It is ever, sir.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the comps were Cam Newton, but he blew his numbers away at the combine. So
Cam Newton with a jetpack on.
But the most exciting aspect for me is the Colts' new head coach. He fostered 2 quarterbacks over the last 3 seasons as the offensive coordinator. In 2020, it was Justin Herbert. And last year, it was like a little guy named Jalen Hurts. We all like him a little bit. I mean, one could say he was an artist kind of working with premier quality paint. But I think he's just the coach you want if you want Anthony Richardson to be your dynasty or your franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and you start to hear like all these things that coaches and GMs and owners say after the draft. This guy was number 1 on our board. We think we got the best player in the draft. With Anthony Richardson, like that could actually possibly be the case, and that's what the Colts are saying, that he was the best player on their board in this draft because of the raw tools that he has. And raw. That is a word that a lot of people have been using to describe him as this like raw player, kind of unsafe to pick in fantasy because it's so volatile. And there's a big difference. Okay. And I think a lot of people have been talking about, there's a big difference between being raw and being inexperienced, right? He has the tools. Okay. Raw is when a player doesn't have those tools, and tools need to be refined. He has the tools. What he is inexperienced. So the talent is there. The tools are there. He needs the experience so that he can properly apply those. So what he is underdeveloped. With that experience, he can become a really, really good quarterback. And it sounds like they're going to do it early. Like, this is not something, a big conversation has been like, you don't get experience on the sidelines. You don't get experience in practice. You have to play games. And that's something that both head coach, GM, and owner have all said here with Anthony Richardson. So we can see him play early. I think he gives you an immediate good rushing floor. Think of Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, guys that finished as top 5 and top 9 quarterbacks last year. I think the floor for him, even as a rookie, is a top 12 quarterback. And that ceiling, we're talking Jalen Hurts territory. So yeah, I'm all in on Anthony Richardson as the QB1 after this draft. Let's get to our number 3, and it's Bryce Young, quarterback for the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, they got the best pure passer in the draft, if you ask me. I mean, if you ask anyone, really. And the weapons around him, they're not going to steal headlines. But I think they've kind of put together a sneaky good receiver group, with veteran Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, after the trade with DJ Moore to Chicago. So Bryce Young's going to have weapons there to throw to for sure. Durability and size arguments are going to kind of follow him around, but he's got the natural talent and leadership skills to compensate those arguments until he proves it at a pro level, which I don't think is going to take long for him.
Yeah, I think, like you said, a lot of people consider him the safest quarterback, and I can totally understand someone wanted to take him at pick 2 in Superflex. You can make your arguments for where you want him amongst the quarterbacks. Maybe you want someone a little less volatile if he's your second quarterback on your roster, right? I still stand behind the rushing floor for Anthony Richardson makes him very not volatile. I know that wasn't great grammar, but I'm not a big fan of the weapons there. I know you said like it's a low key, like good wide receiver room. I'm just not a big fan. Like Adam Thielen is like 1 foot out the door. DJ Chark, even in the league's best offense, like one of the league's best offense last year in Detroit, didn't really do a whole lot. So the team lacks elite skill players, but I think that if there is a quarterback in this draft class that can do it and showed that he could do it at Alabama in his final year where there was not any single elite player except for Jahmyr Gibbs, who was a running back. Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young could potentially do it. And so I think they might not be getting the rookies that they want next season, but Carolina could be a big spender in free agency next year. So yeah, I'm all good with Bryce Young going 3 here. Let's get to our number 4, and that is CJ Stroud, quarterback for the Texans.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be kind of negative here, but I'm going to try not to be. He's got an uncanny accuracy. It's going to come in handy as the weapons around him. We talked about Carolina weapons not being that great. The wide receiver room in Houston is really lacking.
Oh yeah, it's probably worse.
It leaves a lot to be desired. And the Texans, they didn't address the offensive line in the draft. And their offensive line ranked 22nd last year, according to PFN. Which that might prove really worrisome for Stroud. He really struggled kind of throwing under pressure at Ohio State. So he's kind of looking at an uphill battle unless a trade is made. And back in February, I had Stroud as my number 1 quarterback. I absolutely loved him. But I just really feel like this initial landing spot, it's just going to kind of set him back. It might be a couple seasons before he's fantasy relevant, even in Superflex for me.
Yeah, the Texans kind of confused me. I think everyone was confused by the way that they ran their draft, and they traded up for Will Anderson, who I get it, best defensive prospect in the draft. Sure, but like now they traded away their 2024 first, which given how bad they could be was something that could be a top 5 pick, next season. So it's like you lose out on the potential of adding a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. for them. Yeah. Stroud's gonna have like some players, right? Like Dalton Schultz is there to be a security blanket, but like he's on a 1-year deal. It's probably gonna be a run first team. Their new offensive coordinator is Bobby Slowick. He comes from San Francisco, so you're probably gonna see some sort of like Jimmy G levels of production from Stroud in his first year, and a lot of like simple plays, tight end stuff, and getting the running backs involved. But I think that the ceiling eventually becomes so much higher for Stroud than it ever was for Jimmy G because he's just a better player, a better athlete, and we saw in that Georgia game, like there's a low key rushing floor that kind of comes baked into CJ Stroud that I don't think a lot of people were considering. Remember, Justin Fields was not a running quarterback coming out of Ohio State either. So like there's something that could be there for him. Now we talked about tiers and why they're so important. I think that's where you get the biggest tier break in Superflex, right? And so many people talk about the value of getting the last player in your tier. And I actually got to do this where I was picking at pick 5 in a Superflex league, and Jahmyr Gibbs went at pick 3, and I was able to get CJ Stroud at pick 5. And so for me, that was phenomenal that I got this player who we really have as 4 at pick 5, still from that top tier, and a quarterback in Superflex is huge, especially because I really needed it. And I got Bijan at the 101. So that was great. But that's where you start to see those like the changes in tiers. You want to try to get a player that's within that same tier, players that are comparable to one another, and then you can kind of formulate your preferences from within there. So our number 5 player that we have here, Joey, you have Jackson Smith and Jigba ranked as your number 5 player. I have him as my number 6. Talk about JSN.
Yeah, I mean, he's my highest rated wide receiver coming into the draft, and he remains there. What I like most about this Seattle landing spot for him is how efficient their offense was last year. They were only 15th in the league in passing attempts. However, they finished 7th in completions and tied for 4th in touchdowns. And JSN could possibly help bump those numbers up. It'll be kind of interesting to see where he slots in with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett.
I see what you did there. Slots in.
You see what I did there? Yeah.
You're on a roll.
But, I think Tyler Lockett, he's getting up there a little bit. So I would assume that JSN kind of maybe supersedes him. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year.
Yeah, that Seattle offense. We'll talk more about the other player they picked there. Damn you, Pete Carroll. But we'll talk more about them. But that Seattle offense could be really, really good this year. And I think that still gives you a glimmer of hope for a guy like JSN, right? This is a good long-term destination, but similar like CJ Stroud, like you're probably not expecting too much as a rookie. He's probably going to be the 3rd target on this team behind Metcalf and Lockett. Like you said, it's probably not till Lockett's gone that you see Jackson Smith and Jigba become a primary target on that team. And then, like we teased earlier, they added another running back onto this roster, Pete Carroll. God, is there a bigger villain to fantasy football than Pete Carroll? Maybe Bill Belichick. I don't know.
Yeah, probably Belichick.
Right, I hate
Carroll's giving us some good stuff,
I hate them right now so much. But they added a running back prospect who catches the ball. And so, yeah, Geno and the offense could be really good, but there's only so many footballs that go around. So rookie season, not as excited about him, but for the future, JSN's still a fantastic prospect. He landed on a good team. Let's get to our number 6 consensus player here, and it's Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back for the Lions. Joey, you got him ranked 7. I have him ranked 6.
Yeah, I mean, draft night, I was pretty underwhelmed by Gibbs' landing spot, but then like 36 hours later, DeAndre Swift goes to the Eagles. So it cleared up a little bit, made things a little bit brighter. He won't see the Lions' share of the carries this offseason. That was worse than the slot one. It really was.
Man, it's getting bad.
It's getting real bad.
It's getting real bad.
Any day now. Any minute now.
Sorry,
David
Joe.
Montgomery's still there. The Lions did give the running backs 546 total touches last season, including 119 targets. I could see Gibbs getting around maybe to like 230, 235 total touches, making him a serviceable kind of bottom end RB2 or a flex option for sure. Okay.
So we talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, and I accidentally ranked him as my number 6. He's actually my number 5 player in this rookie class. And you mentioned a lot of things about like this Detroit Lions running back room and how they distributed the ball last year. You think about it. DeAndre Swift was still a top 15, 16 running back on a points per game basis. The problem was he wasn't healthy all the time. Jamal Williams was taking a lot of those goal line carries, but at a crazy rate, he was taking goal line carries. And the Detroit Lions staff just hates DeAndre Swift. Like, they hate him. They legitimately hate him. They were high-fiving when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs like they had all individually, each one, a lottery, like a different lottery at a different state, and they were all walking out of that room as like multi-millionaires, which some of them actually are. But the excitement for Jahmyr Gibbs was crazy. There was the rumor that there was a team that liked Jahmyr Gibbs more than Bijan Robinson, and the Lions said they would have taken him at their original spot at pick 6, but they saw some value and wanted to be able to make the trade back. So this could all just be conjecture, right? Like, it could all just be like stuff that they're just like making, oh yeah, we loved him the whole time, right? But like, man, if they were willing to take him there at 6, and the Lions did some crazy stuff, like going and getting Jack Campbell super early, so it wouldn't surprise me. But the pass catching makes Jahmyr Gibbs easily a potential top 7 or 8 running back in Dynasty, potential top 12 or 15 in redraft. And I think the size will keep him limited. Goal line stuff will keep him limited. But man, the receiving work is just going to be chef's kiss for him. Let's get to our next player. Number 7, Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver for the Chargers. Joe, you have him at 6. I do not. But talk to me about Quentin Johnston.
This is the I told you so pick. On this very show, on our wide receiver preview, I told everyone he was going to go to the Chargers at 21. What a dart throw, Joey. You had no idea what you're talking about.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. It's very unbecoming of you.
No, I felt like he was a good fit, and it was really cool draft night seeing him land somewhere like that. Big body wide receiver who's going to thrive with Justin Herbert. this does feel like the best case scenario for him. Averaged 20 yards per reception in college. He still needs development, though, with utilization of his size. I mentioned it back in February. Was it February we did that, or maybe March?
I don't know. Time is a construct at this moment.
He's a big body receiver. He's never quite used it right. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams missed a combined 10 games last year. So we could see Quentin Johnston contributing week 1, and I expect him to be on the field week 1.
Yeah, he's just not the field stretcher I wanted them to get. It's good offense, great QB. He's got some old wide receivers around him, so there could be opportunity. But I think people are forgetting a lot. They're focusing so much on the wide receivers and forgetting about Austin Eckler. So it's not like he's even a top 3 option in that offense. He is the 4th receiving option in that offense. He's got to develop more as a route runner, as a contested catch receiver. There's a lot of things. So he could be a really high upside play with a good potential in his future, but the floor could also be pretty low for him. Let's move on to our number 8 player, and it is Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Vikings.
So we've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Is this now maybe the best young wide receiver duo in the league? I think it very well could be. Addison averaged 15.5 yards per reception over the last 2 seasons. And he comes into a field where the guy across from him, Justin Jefferson, is going to take a lot of attention. So he's going to see some work. He can line up in the slot or outside. He's probably the most versatile wide receivers from this draft class. And Adam Thielen's gone, so there'll be work for him there. If you're a KJ Osborne truther, I was a little bit. This is kind of a blow to his value. But Jordan Addison, what a landing spot for him.
Yeah, I love it. I've got him ranked as my number 7 player. I've got him ranked ahead of Quentin Johnston. And listen, he could see 100 targets in year 1. And I think that Addison is a player who is extremely talented in all the things that matter in being a wide receiver, like route running, his hands, his understanding of spatial awareness. He may not be the fastest or the biggest, and we've seen that there are players that have talent that can overcome that. Guys like Devontae Smith and Calvin Ridley and a lot of players that he was comped to. The Vikings just passed the ball a lot. They could be getting rid of Dalvin Cook. Addison's now 3rd in line for targets in that team. Justin Jefferson's going to be getting a lot of attention. I think that there's a Robert Woods kind of fit for the Vikings there in this Kevin O'Connell offense. And he's a better prospect than Robert Woods ever was. And there was not too long ago a time we were talking about Woods being a top 15, top 20 guy in PPR every year. So yeah, I think that if this trend continues with the Vikings passing the ball a lot, Addison being out there on the field from an early standpoint in the season, yeah, Addison brings you good value early, and it could be like that for quite a long time. Now we got another tier break here. We move on to tier 3, where we get to our number 9 player, and it's Zay Flowers of the Ravens.
Yeah, it does feel like a good tier break right there. I mean, Zay Flowers is highly touted yak monster during the lead up to this draft. Great ability to accelerate after switching direction. I've never really been a fan of Rashad Bateman, so I was really hoping the Ravens are going to address the wide receiver position in this draft and draft someone. And I like Zay Flowers coming into this draft, so I was pretty excited to see him land there. He's got a real opportunity to be the leading wide receiver in this offense. I still think Mark Andrews will probably get the most targets, but Zay Flowers in Baltimore makes a lot of sense. I like it a lot. Yeah,
I think that's the thing, is he could be the top wide receiver, but he won't be the top receiver on that team. That's still Mark Andrews. I saw a lot of he's the next Hollywood Brown for Lamar, and they're not the same mold. I'd say he's probably a bit more of like a Deebo Samuel light. He's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of underneath stuff. He'll get a lot of backfield touches, screens, things like that. And it'll be a guy that's going to move the ball in Todd Monken's new offense, where they should be passing a bit more. Out of those top 4 wide receivers, like the guys that we already mentioned, this is the player that I feel the least confident about. And that's why I kind of set that tier break for us, where I put him at the top of this new tier, but I can't quite put him with those other guys. Let's get to our number 10 player. And we both have him ranked as number 10. It's Dalton Kincaid, tight end for the Bills. And this is a little bit unprecedented because you don't see a lot of rookie tight ends getting drafted this early in rookie drafts for fantasy purposes. They just take so long to develop. But this is a really interesting case because he's so athletic, ended up on a good team. Joey, talk to me about Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, I don't want to fall into taking a rookie wide receiver and expecting him to get out there and start the first year and produce for my fantasy squad. But man, the way the Buffalo is looking like they're probably going to utilize him makes me think that, yeah, he might actually be able to contribute to your team year 1. Usually around year 3 is when you start seeing tight ends really start to put up numbers. He's not a blocking tight end, which might have him coming off the field a little bit in situations where the run game will be heavy. The Bills are a great team. They put up a lot of points. If they're kind of running down the clock, we might see Kincaid come off a little bit. Outside of that, though, his pass catching abilities are elite for his position. And Football Guy's very own Jeff Bell called him a cheat code at the position. So I like this landing spot for him a lot.
Yeah, I was also sliding to Jeff Bell's DMs after they made that pick, and he said the exact same thing to me. Because if you can take a guy like this, use him as a big slot, lots of 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends, and Josh Allen loves a slot receiver. Now you got a 6'5" guy who has likely already the second best hands in the team behind Stephon Diggs. He's got this really good production profile coming out of Utah, and just excellent film. I like the player. I like the draft capital. I like the offense. This could be a lot of fun, and a player who could, I mean, the Bills, you talk about like them maybe running out the clock. They don't do that. As a Dolphins fan, I've watched these games. Even when they're winning, they still don't run out the clock. They pass. They're one of the most pass heavy teams, even in neutral situations or in leading situations. Like, they still do it. So Dalton Kincaid, I really like this. And I think it kind of breaks the mold where you can take a tight end as a top 10 pick, even in Superflex. Let's go to our number 11 guy. And this was probably one of the biggest fallers in the draft, but for fantasy purposes, and I get for super flex purposes, he doesn't fall too much. It's Will Levis, quarterback for the Titans. Joe, you've got him at 12. I've got him at 11.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the Titans trading Ryan Tannehill, I don't think we're going to see Levis start. Definitely not start this season. I don't know if we'll see him this season at all, which is probably good. He looks like a prototypical pro-style quarterback, but he can use
who puts mayonnaise in his coffee.
That's disgusting.
I'm never going to let it live. I'm never going to let that go.
Coffee is such a wonderful beverage. Why add mayonnaise to it and ruin it? I don't know.
They're both good individually. Like they're both good individually, but like you don't put those things together. That's just, this to me says more about his decision making as an athlete and as a person than anything I could ever see on film. It is so frustrating as a person to watch.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, maybe that's why he can't read defenses. So he should spend that first year on the bench to learn how to read defenses properly because of the mayonnaise and the coffee. Maybe just switch to like just regular creamer and it'll all come into focus where you will. Me sitting here in a studio where you're out in the field actually playing.
Disgusting.
I do love that Tennessee used the first round pick on Peter Skoronski. Skoronski, did I say that right?
Skoronski.
Skoronski.
You gotta get the on.
On ski. Yeah, the top rated offensive tackle in this draft. I mean, protecting Levis is going to be paramount. Also, getting him another wide receiver in addition to Treylon Burks is going to be kind of important. So until his time comes, looks as though Tennessee's making the right moves to get him on the field, just to make sure he succeeds.
He was comped a lot to Ryan Tannehill, so he kind of fits that exact mold of what the Titans want. But we saw them do this last year where they take Malik Willis a lot later. And what I hate to see as a fan or when I'm evaluating something is when a team just takes a quarterback because they fell. They didn't trade up for him. Like we saw if Aaron Rodgers fell, Lamar Jackson fell, teams moved up to go get their guy. The Titans did not have that conviction to even move up 2 or 3 spots to go get Will Levis. They kind of slept on it. They got to, whatever 33rd or 34th pick in the draft. And they're like, all right, yeah, we'll take the mayonnaise lover. Like, that's fine. Why, if this is a guy that you have to develop, why would you not trade up into that first round and get that 5th year option, especially with a position that is so, expensive like quarterback, and you need that time. So yeah, it shows me like they don't have a lot of conviction in it, and they were just kind of like, well, let's see what happens. And that's why I can't put him in the top 10. That's why I got to keep him in this next tier. Even though we put him here and I ranked him at 11, I would have a hard time still drafting him there. I think you kind of just end up doing it because it's a quarterback in Superflex. Let's go to our number 12 and number 13 players, and we'll start to move a little faster through these. And we got back-to-back running backs here who I think are very interchangeable, and we actually have them interchangeable. And it's Devon Achane going to the Dolphins and Zach Charbonnet to the Seahawks. Joey, talk about each of these guys real quick.
Yeah, I like Achane a little bit more. Miami has arguably the fastest wide receiver in the league. Might as well get the fastest running back. He had the fastest 40 time in the combine. He's a great pass catching back. But he still averaged 5.6 yards per carry, so he can still run the ball really well. Kind of will be in a committee to start the season with Jeff Wilson and Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris is 31.
Or Raheem Mostert, either one.
Yeah, what did I say?
Raheem Morris. Wasn't that the Bucs coach?
That's the Bucs coach. So I get a slip on that because I'm a Bucs fan. Because we know who I meant, Raheem Mostert. Oh boy, off the rails today. I see a role for Achane immediately in the passing game. And kind of unfolding a little bit more as Miami goes on. This might be outside of those first couple running backs, the running back spot I like the most where he landed, which is why he kind of moved up my rankings a little bit.
Yeah, Devon Achane going to the Dolphins. Everyone was waiting, like, okay, well, which running back goes there? And Devon Achane going to the Dolphins was really exciting. And the more I started to really think about it, I started to remember, okay, the Dolphins don't just use one guy. And there was so many weeks where you'd think, okay, I can finally start Raheem Mostert. No, I couldn't because Jeff Wilson went off. Oh, I can finally start Jeff Wilson. No, you can't because Raheem Mostert went off. Oh, I can maybe start both of them. Nope, because here comes Savon Ahmed out of nowhere. And so, yeah, I get that they're going to be excited about Devon Achane, and I'm excited too. He still has that talent where he can, break out any given game. But man, it's just the way that team runs, that kind of San Francisco running back style where they've never really had a single guy. It's typically a committee. Devon Achane, because of the size, is probably never going to get more than 12, 13 touches in a game, but he's got the explosive ability to make things happen. And I don't want to adjust too much for landing spot, right? Like I vaulted him up pretty highly. I don't want to change too much. And Zach Charbonnet is the other guy here for the Seahawks. And listen, I think he has an immediate goal line role. I think he's going to have a receiving role in that team. And that's something they talked about. And when they called Zach Charbonnet, they said, hey, we run the crud out the ball, right? Yeah, they do. So I think there's going to be room for both of these guys, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, to be productive. But oh gosh, I hate this spot so much for Zach Charbonnet. I hate it so much.
It was the most disappointed I was with any landing spot. Like you said, the upside's limited because of Walker. He's going to get goal line carries, average 7 yards a carry at UCLA. He's a dynamic running back. Just he's coming into at least a timeshare, and that's just sad to see because we had such high hopes for him. I mean, he sank so much in my rankings.
If you want to check out the rest of our top 26 rankings here for the rookies after the NFL draft, be sure to download and subscribe to the audio version of this show. The link is in the description down below, and you can become a subscriber to the podcast and check out all the great bonus content we have there for you.